Hello, it is a Wednesday and it is episode 10 of the Disco Cosmic. I'm the Disco, you're the Cosmic. Let's get to this. Staying down dirty. This is going to be a quick one, I promise, because I don't have hardly any energy. So we're going to get right to it. Astrology for this week, we have been continually talking about the astrology of August. The big news this week is that Mercury went direct, right? Bless. And also that Jupiter is going to conjoin Venus in Cancer. So it's the two benefics conjoining, and what does that mean? And also with this Mercury going direct. So that's really all I'm going to talk about today. I want to do a very, very quick tarot size that I think kind of leans into the themes that are being brought up by Mercury going direct, having this huge cazimi, becoming the morning star, also with the two benefics in Cancer, which is the rising sign of the Thema Mundi. And if you don't know what that is, it is the chart of when the universe was born. It is where we think, our planet Earth, that is the natal chart of the universe. And its ascendant is Cancer. So the fact that Jupiter and Venus are both in Cancer, the ascendant, this beautiful, nurturing, wonderful, watery sign with Venus and all these Venusian art and expression and conjoining and coming together, and Jupiter, luck, the fates are in our favor, expansion, growth. This is a very fertile, beautiful time. And then with Mercury going direct, and as I've talked about in my other videos, this was not like, oh, whoops, my computer crashed. This was a very heavy, heavy, heavy Mercury retrograde. And I don't think, if you disagree with me, please put it in the comments. Let me know it was great. I would love to hear some non-horror stories about this Mercury retrograde, right? So I think that's what I'm going to focus on today with these three transits. Mercury going direct, and also what that means with Jupiter and Venus both being conjunct in the sign of Cancer. It's the birth of everything, of you and I, of particles, of my energy waves going to your energy waves and back again. So I wanted to focus on curiosity, because that's really what this signature reminds me of. This is a great opportunity to become curious, right? We just went through this really, really difficult time with Mercury retrograde. And I talked about this before too, how do we get our power back? And one of the things that I think is so powerful is wonderment, and it is curiosity. And I do think it's luxury. That's why it's in the title. Curiosity and wonder are a luxury that we have access to anywhere we are. Without curiosity and wonder, and that truly almost like really innocent and beautiful and naive sense of, how does this work? Why is this the way it is? Why do I think about this way? How can I express this curiosity and wonderment and continue to make it grow? So the curiosity is Mercury. Venus is what do I do to express this curiosity and wonderment? How do I weave it into my ecosystem so that it has a fertile place to grow? And then you got Jupiter. How do we make it grow? How do we continue to lean into that wonderment and curiosity? So that's what I'm really thinking about with these transits, especially, like I said, the Venus and Jupiter and Cancer being the universe's ascendant, right? Like, no big deal, just when the universe was born. But there's something very fertile and something that I really think, we all can recenter our ecosystems. I've been thinking a lot about ecosystems lately, and just how that term applies to nature, spiritual, emotional, physical, and how we can really create a lot of depth and complexity when we start looking through the lens of ecosystems, nature, and how messy life is supposed to be, and it is, and this is how we bring astrology down to planet Earth, where we can use it pragmatically to do what is best for ourselves and what's best for others. All right, onwards. The only other thing I want to say about the astrology of this week is that Mars and Mercury are going to sextile 2 times, the 14th and the 18th. And this is rare because both those planets move very fast. So it's rare for them to actually talk to each other and bounce back and forth. All I want to say about that is just, take a breath, exhale, and, you know, really decide what is the best way for you to express something if you are going through a conflict or if you have something you need to say. And just be aware of other people's feelings, because that Mercury Mars, you know, going back and forth, right? Just make sure, just take a little extra precaution. So that's what we'll say about that. Like I said, I would like to keep the theme of this video on curiosity and wonder as being a luxury. It's so luxe, right? I mean, really, these are things that we get to do as human beings, as existing human beings, that we can tap into at any time. We can have wonderment and curiosity about anything. And I think with these conjunctions, and especially with Mercury going direct, we are in such a beautifully fertile time. What am I curious about? What can I just lose myself in? What do I want to learn about? And what makes me wonder? What gives me that sense of, you know, childlike wonder that just takes me into that magical place of existence that feels really, really beautiful, and it feels really, really new and exciting. You know, this is the Venusian. How do we express that then? The excitement and curiosity is Mercury. How do we express it in some sort of art or a project or, you know, garden, ecosystem? How do we make it grow? How do we show it out? How do we make it bloom? What does it look like? What are the petals in your garden? How do we grow all this? And then there's Jupiter, right? How do we grow it? Because that's what Jupiter is about: growth, abundance, you know, expanding our ecosystems, expanding our wonderment, and expanding our curiosity. So we're gonna do a quick down and dirty. I'm gonna do a little tarot size, and again, we're gonna invite Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and the moon, because they're in Cancer, and what rules Cancer? The moon. So the moon is here as well. Welcome, planets, to the disco. And I'm gonna pull one card for Mercury. What do we need to be curious about? What can spark, you know, some curiosity and wonderment in our lives, if that is what we need? And Venus, how do we express that curiosity? Again, what does your garden look like? How do you make your ecosystem grow, right? How do you make it, what do the flowers look like? What are the colors? What kind of plants? What kind of herbs? You know, this is all things that you can think of in an archetypal sense, from nature to spiritual to emotional to physical. It's all an ecosystem. I will be using the, oh, this is so dirty. I'm so sorry to show you this box. The Lifeline Tarot by Thomas of Hermit's Mirror. You can find him on Instagram. He has a bunch of decks. His decks are very minimalistic, which I really like. And I also like for this time of curiosity, because it allows you to fill in a lot of the meaning, the structure, the ideas. It gives your imagination, curiosity, a moment to shine. So that's one of the reasons I really like this deck. I've already done my invocation. I've already called in, you know, my guides and spirits and protection. And like I said, we got Mercury here, we got Jupiter here, we got Venus here, we got the moon here. Let's see. The moon is the only one. We're just gonna let the moon kind of hang out. The moon doesn't get, who knows? Maybe I'll pull a card for the moon at the end if I'm feeling saucy. Anyhow, let's get on with it. Curiosity and wonder. Mercury, what are we curious about? Right. What is, as a collective, do we need to be more curious about? Where do we, ooh, tingles. Okay, where do we find that collective energy of curiosity, and what are we going to get curious about? We got the Nine of Pentacles, which, you know, and again, the Lifeline Tarot. This is very much in the Rider-Waite-Smith vein as far as the imagery, but as you can see, right, he leaves out a lot, and that's so that you can fill it in. What does this card mean for you? And again, where's your houses? What house is Cancer in for you? Where is this affecting you? So think about that as well. As far as a collective reading, the Nine of Pentacles, as far as a Mercury, what do we need to be curious about? I love that I've been talking about gardens and ecosystems this entire freaking time, and we get the Nine of Pentacles where she's literally in a garden. Okay. What do we need to be curious about? We need to be curious about our own ecosystems, how we are growing our ecosystems, how we're nurturing our ecosystems, and how we are, you know, expanding our, do we even know that we have an ecosystem, right? Have you ever thought about yourself that way, as an ecosystem, right? Spiritual, emotional, physical, everything around you is an ecosystem. Nature doesn't, you know, hang out in Euclidean geometry, right? Nature is chaos. Nature is chaos theory. There is no perfect triangle in nature. So take that to yourself. you're not perfect either, and you're messy and beautiful, and you can start, if you haven't already, what does my ecosystem look like? What do I want in my garden? How do I want to fertilize it? What kind of soil do I want to use so that I can achieve this Nine of Pentacles feeling of security and stability? Mercury. Love that. Venus, what do we got for us? For Venus, how do we express this curiosity? Nothing. We got the Devil. Which, the devil can have a lot of different interpretations and meanings. And in a Venusian sense, the first thing that comes to my mind is warning of overindulgence. And this is something that I've also, heard about this conjunction as well, is that there is a tendency for overindulgence, both benefics and Cancer. Cancer loves to be luxurious and homey. Cancer is like, the family member that just keeps feeding you and does all your chores, and it's just, with these two benefics being in Cancer, it is like getting a warm disco cosmic hug from the goddess, right? From the goddess, from the moon, from the creator of, the mother of the universe. I mean, according to the theme of Mundi, right? So getting this, I think, how do we express our curiosity? We don't let it take control. Okay, I think that's the first thing. We don't let it, suddenly I'm into Legos and now I'm going to spend all of my money on Legos. I'm going to overindulge in Legos so I can create. I'm really curious about Legos and all the new Lego sets. So I'm going to buy 50 million Lego sets. Right, don't do that. Dial it back a little bit. Right, don't, curiosity and wonderment is wonderful, but we don't want to get stressed and obsessed, right? But I also think that this card can also say that, how do you express yourself? Maybe by getting a little bit naughty, maybe by exploring, these shadow sides of your garden. Your garden, as any ecosystem, it has what we would call parasites or insects or, quote unquote pests, but things that balance. Honestly, they all are necessary. Just as much as we need both benefics and Cancer, we also need to be reminded that everything has a shadow side. Everything has a shadow side. So I really think this message from Venus is like, yeah, create, get curious, get into it, grow your garden, but right, don't overdo it. And don't overindulge, and make sure that you're finding a healthy balance as we move through this really, really powerful, and I think it's like a space where we can get really complex with ourselves. What's in our garden? What's in our ecosystem, right? All right, Jupiter, what do we got? Oh, Three of Pentacles. So, what a great card for Jupiter. And again, loving the minimalism. What do you see? Where is Cancer in your chart? What is it affecting natally? What are all these transits affecting natally? And what do you want to build? And you've got the resources. The Three of Pentacles is oftentimes about resources and building something together. I almost feel like with this Venus card, where did it go? With this Venus card coming in as a Devil, and then we have Jupiter as the Three of Pentacles, I almost feel like, Venus is like, don't be selfish. Share your curiosity, share your wonderment. Don't just keep it under covers. Let it out, right? Let it out. You're only as sick as your secrets, right? And so maybe something you need to get curious about is yourself, and is some of the shadow work that shadow work, we use these terms, things about your ecosystem that maybe are not serving you anymore, weeds that you need to pull, if we want to put it metaphorically. And this card, just as much as our lives and nature, we need growth and abundance and life force. We also need death, decay, winter. It's all a cycle. Q. Elton John, circle of life. I mean, it's the planet that we live on. So I do think, right, share your wonderment. Share it, build something. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't be stressed. Don't be obsessed. Get out there, get in your community. That's what we need to start getting curious about. That's what's coming through now, right? We don't want to just be alone in our garden, right? Mercury is telling us, yes, grow your garden. You gotta, what can I do that's best for myself and best for my community? Don't hoard it, and don't be obsessed. Don't become obsessive. Don't become greedy. Don't use that in that devil sort of way, in that shadow way, and learn how to connect. Get curious about how, we make all these statements about community and about, helping each other and being kind to each other. And again, in these times, it feels like it's one of the hardest things to do, is just to be civil to each other. Get curious about how to build community. That is the message that is coming through here. Right, you don't have to be alone in your garden. Yeah, you can be, and it's your garden. You get to do whatever you want with it, and that's beautiful. But, right, how do we really form community? What a wonderful question. I'm going to leave that to y'all. I'm going to leave that to the cosmic. What does community actually mean to you? And how does it show up in your daily life? And where is that devil showing up while we're trying to explore community? Because that's part of curiosity and wonder, is also making mistakes. Sometimes we don't learn unless we made enough mistakes. I mean, talk to any scientist. Most of their work is making mistakes until they can come upon something that seems almost maybe right, until the next thing comes on that's right. So, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to learn from them. But we really need to come together, and I keep hearing that Beatles song everywhere. The come together right now over me. Right. This is the time. Ask yourself. So that, I think, is the major message from the tarot sides. Get curious about community. How do you show up in community? And that's every single day, every single interaction, right? And we can feel a little bit over-glorified. We can feel a little bit, check that ego, humble it down. It's one of the mantras of the disco. We stay extraordinarily humble to the unknown. You don't know what anyone else is going through. Be careful with your words. And especially with that Mars-Mercury sextile that's happening twice. Be careful with your words and really, really think about that. What does community mean to you, and how are you going to grow it? How are you going to add more flowers and trees and connect to other gardens? How do you make it a community garden? So I think those are some very beautiful messages. Thank you, planets, right? We are always humble to the seventh scene. We are humble to the liminal. We are humble to the unknown, and we stay that way. And today's message, very short and sweet. Get curious about community. That's what the disco has for you. So I'm going to leave you with a little quote. I do have a Bartlett's because I'm a nerd, right? You can't really call yourself a nerd unless you have a Bartlett's, okay? So this is from Edith Wharton, and it's just a small quote about curiosity. In spite of illness, in spite even of the arch enemy sorrow, one can remain alive long past the usual date of disintegration if one is unafraid of change. Insatiable curiosity, interested in big and small things, and happy in small ways. So that is all I have for you today. I'm the Disco, you're the Cosmic. Like, subscribe, find me on Facebook, Instagram, wherever discos are sold. And yeah, no more tears left to cry. We got 2 benefics in Cancer. Think about it's in the ascendant of the entire universe. Cancer, the mother, the birth. Big disco hug from the goddess. So that's all I've got for you for this evening. Trying to keep it short, and I will be back next week. I'm the Disco, you're the Cosmic. Cosmic out.